Hello everyone, Zellerant here, and for today's video on Girls Frontline 2, we're going to be talking about one of the next T-Dals coming up, and that is Belka. As we know, we're going to be getting hammered with a lot of electric units coming out, and Belka is going to be one of the first ones we are going to be having with the dual banner. And so I've got the details on her kit right here, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at it and kind of give my thoughts on where she kind of falls in terms of the entire electric team. So the first thing we want to take a look at Belka here is her passive. I kind of like to look at that first for every single T-Dal when we look at them. Kind of gives you an idea of how they work. So with Belka's, at the start of the turn, increases Confectance Index by 1 point. So by default, she just gets 1 Confectance Index every single turn from her ultimate. And then before attacking, applies negative charge on the target and the nearest enemy for 1 turn. So one of the big things that she can do is she spreads negative charge around, and if she kills the target, she gains invisibility, which basically means she can't be targeted by the enemy. One of the big things that I still see as a problem right now and is really, I have not seen a heavy threat to any of the T-Dals taking too much damage to the point that I care about any of the defensive stuff most of them have in their kits. If you have like one of the basic healers for any of the elements, you're pretty much covered in that aspect. And we will be getting Andrus, which is kind of the tank for the electric team alongside Belka. So, not being able to target, not that big of a deal to me there. And then for each negative charge applied by allies, which overall the electric team negative charge is one of the buffs or debuffs that you can see throughout the electric team, increases her crit rate by 5% up to a maximum of 30%. So as it's getting applied, she can have her crit rate increased by her allies that can apply negative charge as well. So that's kind of her ultimate there. Nothing too crazy. That's one of the biggest things you're going to see with Belka. Most people are going to talk about she's one of the weakest of the group now. Now that Jian Yu has had her buffs to her kit, that is one of her problems we are seeing. Even Mosin Nagant surpasses Belka at her V4. But let's just go ahead and continue looking into the kit here. So basic attack is just your typical basic attack, nothing really special tied to it. And then you have her skill 1. This one has a confectance cost of 1, but no cooldown. So you could theoretically spam this one alongside her getting 1 confectance index every single turn from her passive there. And so selects an enemy target within a 6-tile radius and deals physical damage, which this can be converted to electric, as we'll see in her other skill. Equivalent to 130% attack to it. Increases the damage of the attack based on 3% times the number of negative charges on the field up to a maximum of 15%. So with her negative charges, as well as any negative charge being applied by allies, you should be able to reach this 15%, so an increase of damage 15% there. And then if the target is a boss unit, which is realistically the main thing you actually care about when it comes to any of the AoE type stuff. There's nobody that's been even close to someone like Klukai to be able to compete on that level, and this is kind of the same case here. So you ultimately just care about if the boss has negative charge, she's going to do 15% if you're using the electric team against them on this one. If the attack crits, increases Confectance Index by 1 point. I think this is going to be quite important. She does have the ability to get her crit rate quite high, alongside this, and then stacking like crit common keys. If you can get that 30%, the crit common keys and the crit gear, you can get it pretty close to guaranteeing this, which then means you can refund the cost there, which is going to be kind of important for her because of her alt costing 4. And then after this skill is used, select an empty tile within a 6-tile radius and lands on that tile. So that's just a quick way for her to move around. Nothing too crazy with here, just a big damaged attack against the enemy there that you should be able to spam every turn. And that you can kind of see that with the second one here. This is a 0-cost skill, but a cooldown of 1 turn on her skill 2. Selects an enemy target within a 6-tile radius and deals electric damage equivalent to 130% attack. And then for each movement point consumed, increases damage multiplier by 5%. So before using this skill, you're going to want to basically move her the maximum distance you can move her. That will increase the damage by 5% for each tile. And she does have movement buffs in her kit to make her move a little bit farther, as we'll see as we get into the keys. And then Belka gains 1 layer of active engagement. And after the skill is used, she can then use Sylvian Vault or Nutcracker Shell. So basically her skill 1 or her basic attack immediately after this. So you're basically going to want to use this every other turn when the cooldown ends, and then that can lead right into one of these skills. If for some reason you have Confectance Index cost problems, which you really shouldn't, you can use your basic attack. Other than that, you can just use the Sylvian Vault here. And what active engagement does is, as I mentioned, you can convert that physical damage to electric. Attacks deal electric damage, increasing the damage dealt by 30% effective once. So basically use this, then you move into this, and it converts this to doing electric damage there. So anything, debuffs or whatnot from other allies, that makes it where you do more damage with electric attacks. She can take advantage of when you kind of move into one of these. And like I said, if you can't, for some reason, get that cost, or you're trying to save up your Confectance Index for the debuff, you can always use your basic attack instead there. We have that attack. Then you have the alt Dancing Solace. This one has a Confectance cost of 4, and then selects the enemy target within an 8-tile radius and deals electric damage equivalent to 60% attack to it, and applying conductivity for 1 turn for each movement point consumed. So another one where you want her to move around quite a bit. Increases the damage multiplier by 5%, and then she gains continuous discharge for 2 turns. And basically, continuous discharges at the end of the action deals an instance of electric damage equivalent of 80% attack and 2 stability damage to the nearest enemy. So this is going to be basically when you're doing Gunsmoke or whatnot with bosses, you just keep her close to the boss, and then it'll do damage to it. That'll kind of be tricky with some of the bosses, where maybe like you have the one with the turrets surrounding her, or any small enemies that might be close to the boss, where it could cause this to be a little bit of a problem. But other than that, just some extra damage for your boss hits on Gunsmoke from that. And it lasts for 2 turns. Get that continuously going out there. So that is pretty much our kit. There's really nothing much to it. It's just a straight damage dealing DPS kit here. And then we kind of get into the keys. So fixed key 1, when invisibility ends, she recovers HP equivalent to 30% max HP and 4 stability. I mean, heals have just never been one thing I've liked on the fixed key, so I would probably never use this one. If you're having some trouble for some reason surviving, you just bring sustain to keep you alive. It doesn't even have to be the electric unit, which is going to be Andress as your kind of tank / sustain. You can always bring someone else if needed. So I would definitely not use that one. Fixed key 2, if Belka has continuous discharge, she becomes immune to movement displacement effect. I mean, that doesn't seem like one of the things I'm not liking with a lot of her keys is they're more defensive ones that we haven't really needed yet. So that one's kind of not that useful either. At the start of turn, if there are enemies within a 5-tile radius of self, gains movement up for 1 turn or 2 turns. This one is pretty decent, as you know her damage is tied to that additional 5% for additional movement. So you can effectively think of that skill as an increase to damage and gives her a lot more mobility. So pretty nice right there. Crackling Core, when using this skill to attack a target with negative charge, increases attack by 10%. Another damage dealing increase 1. Anyone you're attacking should have negative charge with her, so that should be active pretty much at all times. And then at the end of action, if there are boss units with negative charge, it gains crit rate boost 1 and damage up for 1 turn. This one's going to pretty much be one of those big ones having on all the time. As we know with her skill 1, as I mentioned, you have that if it's crits, increases Confectance Index by 1 point. That's going to be just one more way to increase her crit to basically near guarantee that she gets crit attacks off. And then you have fixed key 6, Dancing Solstice. Before the skill is used, dispels 2 buffs from the target. So a nice dispel. We've seen a lot of bosses which have mechanics tied to dispelling from them, and so that's one way that Belka can do it right there. Affinity key is an attack HP crit, so not the best here. There's a lot better options than that. And then the common one is an attack 5%. If movement points are consumed, increases damage dealt by 10%. And so that one can work pretty much in anyone that cares about attack percent. I don't know if I would... I mean, it's a 10% versus a lot of them which have 7%. So it's pretty good on her, but depending on where your crit is with her, I almost want to think that you would want 3 keys that all increase crit rate, just to get it as close to 100% as you can for that skill 1. And everybody can consume movement. I mean, this could be useful in like someone like Dion, but anyone can take advantage of it, really, that isn't focused heavily on crit, but maybe just doing straight damage instead. And then her expansion key, Sylvian Vault. Actually, I can't remember if they're actually giving us this, but for future reference, if we're not getting it immediately, Sylvian Vault deals electric damage now instead and increases the crit damage of this attack by 5% per allied unit with positive charge, up to a maximum of 25% when using Crackling Core or Dancing Solace. If Belka has moved less than 10 times, the movement is treated as 10 tiles. So with this expansion key, she can immediately get it treated if she hasn't gone 10 movement, as if she did. And so now the movement doesn't even matter to trigger those kind of effects. So nothing too crazy there. And let's go ahead now and look at her dupes. And she has probably some of the most underwhelming of dupes in the game when it comes, especially on the electric team. They're all basically going to be for increasing her specific damage, but it's nothing too significant. V1, for each movement point consumed, increases the damage, so it's just increasing the multiplier on Crackling Core, and so that's all it is, just increase the damage multiplier there. V2, gains 1 layer of active engagement when using Dancing Solstice. New effect is added for continuous discharge. And so this is the one where you do damage that closest enemy. If the target of the skill is the same as the target of continuous discharge, which they generally will be when you're doing like Gunsmoke Frontline, which is when it matters the most. Applies Electric Overflow before attacking in the last 2 turns, so now you can apply Electric Overflow V2. When receiving a damage from continuous discharge, additionally receives an instance of fixed damage equivalent to 100% attack. So just more damage. And that's pretty much everything in her dupes here. Her V3, before attacking, applies conductivity to the target for 1 turn. So now you're pretty much always putting conductivity on the enemy. And when an enemy target with negative charge has negative charge, which they pretty much always should with Belka, now she has the defense ignore. And then when Belka deals single target electric damage towards enemy targets with negative charge, increases the damage multiplier fixed damage by negative charge. So just more damage increase on her. For each electric damage dealt by allies, she gets 1 layer of energy storage. So you're going to pair her in the electric team. So with that, increases electric damage by 5%, can be stacked up to 6 times. So a 30% damage increase there on the V3. That's one of her biggest increases to damage, if you bring her up to that. But you're going to, if you're going to invest into anyone in dupes, you have better options, which we'll talk about hereafter. And then V4, at the start of battle, increases movement speed by 1 tile, so she can move more to take advantage of those movement buffs on damage. But with our expansion key, that already gets made irrelevant because you can get the 10 tile advantage right there. So it just moves it right up to there. And then increases the upper limit of energy storage by 4 layers. So now it can go up to 10 of 5%, so 50% damage increase. And then for each instance of electric damage dealt by self, additionally gains 1 layer of energy storage. So you can raise it to that 10 stacks much quicker. Increases stability damage dealt by 2 points, increases crit damage of this attack by 30%, and then and this is for Sylvian Vault, increases the damage of this attack based on 6% times the number of negative charges on the field, up to a maximum of 30%. If they are a boss unit, which is what matters most, it just immediately gets increased to a 30%, and then the last one here, for each movement point consumed, increases damage multiplier by 10%. So just increase that multiplier. And the damage multiplier of continuous discharge by 30%. So now that one's up by 30%. If the target has 2 or more electric type debuffs, which they should with her at this point, increases crit damage by 30%. And she's going to naturally have a high crit rate. So that should be taken into account most of the time. And that's her V6 there. And the last thing we'll look at is her weapon. If the unit has, so Forest Fairy is got the trait, if the unit has full HP at the end of action, they gain a random buff. So she should have max HP most of the time. So she should get a random buff basically every turn that lasts for a turn. And before attacking, for each movement point consumed, increases damage dealt by percentage, 5% at 1 all the way up to 10, up to a maximum of 10 to 20%. And so basically just double of whatever this is. So you move 2 tiles and you get that damage increase. If the target has negative charge, increases electric damage dealt by 15 up to 25 with max dupes. So nothing crazy there, just as basic buffs to her. This is pretty tied to her because of this one right here. Although the other electric units, I guess, could take advantage of it as well, but their own personal weapons are going to be better options. And that is pretty much Belka. There's nothing too crazy to her kit. And one of the problems with her is she is pretty much one of the weakest in terms of dealing damage. And when it comes to the dupes, you just have so many more better options. When we get Leva, which is most likely going to be the event that takes place after we get Belka, Andres, and then Jianyu, we're most likely going to then have the Leva Robella event. So we'll get Leva, which is the one, if you're going to invest into dupes into any of the electric units, Leva is the one to do that. She's kind of the, I don't know if you want to call it the Klukai of the electric team. So she's the one to heavily invest into if you're going to invest into anyone. And then I think Andres is probably the best one after that. Well, maybe Jianyu. Jianyu's kind of, I'd have to kind of see and think about her a little bit more since her entire kit changed. So really investing into these is not worth it. It's not significant enough on the damage, and she's just not a big damage dealer. From what I've seen and people that have run the numbers, Mosin Nagant at V4 is superior to a V6 Belka. And then if you get Mosin Nagant to V6, she's a standard unit, she's even way better. And so when you have your electric team, if you're going to want to heavily invest in them, you already got your full team. You have Leva is like your core main DPS, Lena, which is a main support for her. Now you have Jianyu, which is the third support, Andres, which will be your fourth unit, and then the fifth one being Mosin Nagant, or you can even bring in like a Yuhi V3, which works really well with them. And so there's really no place for Belka currently in the team. She's kind of needing a rework similar to Jianyu to bring her or elevate her up. Now, she does have one of the better skins in the game with her Halloween skin, which will be coming out with her. So she's definitely got that dorm meta for those that like that. But nothing too crazy in her kit overall. And you can even see they have the advice here. V3 and V6 gives the highest increase to damage at 33% at V3 and 20%, but it's not recommended. It's not significant enough. But if you really like her, she can do the job. There's nothing in this game that's been difficult enough, as you probably can tell at this point, to really care. If she's a favorite unit and you want to use her in your electric team, go ahead and pull one copy of her and she will do just fine. I wouldn't even worry about the weapon. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Belka. I'll be going over Andres probably tomorrow for her kit, as she is going to be a good pickup for your electric team. The only problem is we're just getting hammered with them, so hopefully you have the pulls to be able to get all of them, because they're just coming back to back to back. But yeah, that's pretty much it, and if you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps, and thanks for watching.